All right, let's start at the beginning here. We actually need to know the difference between a personal brand and a corporate brand in order for us to do our work, and where you are going to be starting. Like, what are we working on? Are we working on your personal brand, or are we working on a corporate brand? So we're actually going to architect this together, because it will clarify a lot of things. A lot of my clients think they're working on a personal brand, but realize that they have an idea and they want to build it into a more of a corporate brand, which is fine, because the process between personal branding and corporate branding is actually very similar. But there are some key differences in the application of a personal brand, and I want to point out what those differences are between the two. So a personal brand, this is going to sound obvious, but it's going to last as long as you do. So whatever you do is going to be intrinsically tied to your own brand and voice. If you're building a corporate brand, assuming that the brand will grow, there is a shorter life cycle for a corporate brand. Back in the 60s, the S&P 500 average lifespan of a organization, and these are large organizations, was about 60 years. Now that has shrunk down to about 18. So the life cycle and lifespan of these organizations is turning a lot faster. So that's why I like to talk about investing in a personal brand, whether you're in a corporate structure or whether you're an entrepreneur trying to build something. It's always good to think about your personal brand. But for the purposes of this course, what are we actually working on here? So it's obviously intrinsically tied to who you are. Usually with a personal brand, the voice comes across as more casual because it's divined straight from you, more spontaneous. It's more driven from the heart. Whereas a corporate brand, classic corporate brand, where you've got a committee of people coming together to lead the charge, that voice is more kind of driven from the head than the heart. It's more driven by a committee of people. And I would say that the voice is more highly curated and more formal, whereas the personal brand side is a little more casual. Now, I'm making a difference between personal and corporate, meaning sort of an established organization. If you're building something for the first time, that voice is going to be very close to you. So I wouldn't get too wrapped up too much about it. But if your aspiration is to build something bigger than you, that has a legacy bigger than you, it's something to certainly consider at this point. With a personal brand, the actions you take are directly tied to you, which is a great thing and also is a risky thing as well. For example, Oprah has been working on her personal brand ever since she started in the business, and she's grown it and grown it and grown it, and all of the organizations are an extension of who she is. She's more well known than the brands that she's built because she has led it with her voice. So that's an example of a very successful, very powerful personal brand. Bill Cosby, on the other hand, now he at one point was America's dad, and he had an amazing personal brand that he built from scratch. But the actions that he has taken as of late have completely tarnished that brand, and he's been vilified, rightly so. So the things that you do are going to be absolutely tied to who you are and what you are. Whereas with a corporate brand, there's less of that kind of thing, where the actions that you take as a person are going to reflect the organization. And again, I'm talking about larger organizations here, but it's good to know the contrast here. So there are names out there that you've likely never heard of. A guy by the name of Alex Gorski or Alfred Kelly. Now, Alex Gorski happens to lead Visa, and Alfred Kelly happens to lead J&J. Now, you wouldn't know that because the organizations are much larger than they are as far as brand equity. So, but the actions that they take will reflect the organization. And there are times when a CEO or leader's personal actions have caused their own organization to turn on them. For example, Donald Sterling, who was the owner of the LA Clippers national basketball team, he made some racist remarks, and then the NBA actually banned him. So the organization, the league, actually banned him for life. So, you just have to be mindful of that as you grow an organization. The things that you do on a personal perspective are going to reflect that organization, and that organization could turn on you. So it's good to know now, the next thing that we need to consider here is, how is your brand going to energetically flow? Is it going to flow? Is the center of the brand, the story of the brand, starting with you and flowing outward from there? Or is the center of the brand starting from an idea you have or a product you're creating, and then you become an agent of that?